Hey, welcome to another archive edition of Chad's Beer Podcast. This one was with Denis LD or Dennis Marin. His channel is still around. I don't know if you guys remember him or not. But I mean, he hasn't posted anything in a while. Actually, if I go to latest, there's stuff here from within the last year or so. But I think this is like his cousin or his friend. I remember they did this sketch comedy thing of Boris the Barbarian. I think Dennis is the one holding the camera. But he hasn't done a beer review in a long time, probably about a dozen years. So, Dennis, if you're watching, please come back to BeerTube, or maybe he has a different channel now where he does beer reviews. You might also remember, and this was a deep cut, is we did this review at my apartment, Flower Power IPA. Remember we did this? I think it was like midnight or 1 in the morning or something. Dennis, he lived in Montreal, and he was taking a bus, I think, to New York City. And it was like in the middle of the night, and he stopped in Albany. And me, him, and Jay, we went to Brown's, which I don't have that video up anymore. But yeah, we went to Brown's in Troy, and then he came back to my apartment, and we did this beer review, and then we also did the podcast, which you're about to watch. So yeah, Dennis was really cool. It's funny because like he's originally from Russia or one of the Soviet satellite states. I forget which one exactly. Sorry, Dennis. But he has like this like quasi-Russian British accent. I think he was raised in Canada, though. I can't remember exactly. In fact, I think he actually gets into it in the podcast. So, yeah, Dennis was a cool dude. I remember I raffled off, I think it was my Beeriotic Table poster, and he won the raffle, and I had to send it to Canada. And I think we did at least one beer trade, maybe two. I can't remember. So, anyway, please enjoy this archive edition of Chad's Beer Podcast, and I will see you guys next week. Hey, welcome to another episode of Interview with a Craft Beer Enthusiast. Today I'm interviewing Denis LD from DM's Montreal Beer Reviews, fellow YouTube beer critic. Yours is a little more of an interesting or unique, different situation from the other people that I've interviewed. First of all, because you're not American. Second of all, I don't like you're Russian, right?
Right.
But you live in Canada.
That's true.
So you have at least two cultural backgrounds there.
That's right.
I know you said it's kind of a long story.
Well,
So, but I was just wondering, is like, but we don't. I mean, we have to go into the whole your personal history, but just, how's your history as far as drinking beer? Of when did you first start drinking? And it seems like you almost went straight into craft beer. Like you were never a macro drinker to begin with.
I guess it's sort of true to some extent. Well, first of all, my dad he likes beer. I wouldn't call him like an enthusiast. He's kind of like, he's not very adventurous about beer. Like, I'm definitely more adventurous. I'm not trying to be like arrogant. It's just that I definitely like. He admits that I've taken it to a higher level. But back when I was a kid, I used to sort of. He was my role model in the way. He was always drinking beer, and he was he was not into macro stuff, but he was not into really complex beers. I guess my first sip of a beer was when I was about like 6 or 7 years old. Now that's where this story kind of splits. My mom always states that I liked it. I said it was good, but my memory tells me that it was crappy. So. By the way, then my uncle was really into beer, and he's actually quite enthusiastic. He lives in Russia, but he's really into Belgian beers and trying different styles. I guess when I was like in my early teens, I saw my uncle. He had this tradition every Friday night. He would buy at least 2 or 3 beers. He would share with my granddad. So yeah, it was in my culture. My mom really hates beers. So like it was kind of like, I was in the middle. In my early teens, I had a few beers. I guess that's where I realized that there's different things, different styles, and different types of categories of beers. I guess my first sort of gateway beer was probably Paulaner wheat beer, the Hefeweizen, which really blew my mind away. I'm like, if that's beer, then I'm gonna be looking after that, and I'm going to be waiting. I'll keep waiting till I'm like 18 or something, so I can be legally drinking. But then I moved to Canada, and in where I used to live in Toronto, the legal age is 19, so I had to wait for a while. Then I moved to Montreal before then, and that's I guess you're kind of right. I didn't really know what craft beer was, but I certainly had my mind made up that I don't want to drink the Budweisers and the Labatts and Molsons of this world. The Heineken was definitely not on my list of beers. Although it took me a few years to sort of readjust, and then I guess I was about 18 or 19 when I started finding that people review beer on YouTube. I think the first review I saw was El Harlock, and then shortly after I saw Chad's reviews, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So that's how I realized that America's got. I didn't really know. I had no clue that about the whole craft beer revolution. But then I guess kind of caught my interest, and I took it from there. And about like 6 months after that, I decided maybe I should give it a go and try to review it myself, whatever I can get. So yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like just like even from the get-go is that you were drinking beer more out of the taste than any kind of
For sure.
to get for buzz or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it was always my drink of choice. Even like I did some underage drinking, but in Toronto it was really hard to find, because everything is like monopolized. You can only get liquor in like particular stores.
Right.
But once I was legal age and everything, yeah. I mean, like sometimes the buzz is of like the bonus you get. In some situations, it's appropriate. Some it's not. But I was always definitely in it for the taste.
Yeah. So like you were raised to drink responsibly, or is that just part of your?
I was never into like maybe it's just my personal preference, but I was never into like drinking spirits, and even though I've had my fair share of that, but. The latest like year and a half, I barely drank anything stronger than beer. Like sometimes I drink wine, but I'm not really much of a wine enthusiast, I guess.
Yeah. So like Denis is like a role model for the argument that you can lower the drinking age to 18, 19, and if you can teach people to drink responsibly, is like he said you weren't drinking just to be rebellious and to get drunk. It was like, hey, this is actually good and tasty, and.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but like I rarely get drunk. I don't really like to be drunk, but like a nice healthy buzz is pretty nice.
I virtually never like plan on getting drunk. Sometimes that's what happens in the end. But like, yeah, I guess sometimes my friends we go to a brew pub. In Montreal, like the local microbrews are really good, but as far as imports go, it's really hard. That's why for my reviews, I usually review half of the reviews at least are either from Ontario, stuff that's sold there, or like now I finally get access to American beers, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, touch on what you were saying before is how what's like the actual impetus or whatever, like. I said this to Jay when I interviewed him. It's like, some people would be happy to just write a 1-paragraph blurb on Rate Beer, Beer Advocate. What made you say, that's not good enough for me, I want to get on YouTube and do a visual?
Yeah, actually that was my rationale. I got into written reviews after I started reviewing. I realized my first reviews are really bad, but I was hoping one day I'll improve. I guess, yeah, and especially for persons, critical of himself, but it really gave me, it really started getting me really excited and enthusiastic. I guess that's, that was the initial source of my enthusiasm about beer. I was always like happy and interested, but without my beer reviews, I wouldn't have tried all the beers I've tried. I wouldn't have, gotten out of my way to get beers. Like when I went to Ontario, which I used to live there, so I have friends there and connections and everything, so I go there every few months or so. I would look at the liquor store selection, maybe I'd drink a few beers with my friends, but that was it. But now every time I go, I usually bring at least like 10 beers back, because I know I'm going to review them, I'm going to try them. In the last like year or so, I've had about like a couple of hundred beers probably. Before, like overall, I've probably had anywhere from like 300 to 400, but... Wow. It really gave me a jump start.
But you're only up to like 100 on your YouTube channel though, right?
Yeah, I think I'm keeping track of my beer reviews and beers I've had on Facebook, I think I'm at about 235 or something, but I've definitely had more than that. It's just I can't remember everything I've had in my life.
Let's get into like your personal preference, like, you know, like you walk into a bar or whatever, and they got stout, IPA, wheat beer, whatever. Like, what's the first thing that's most likely to draw your eye?
If I can get access to any American style IPAs, I'll probably go for that. But in Canada, it's sort of like half-half. Sometimes you get English style IPAs, which are fine. But I guess if you look at my favorite styles, which have recently changed, I definitely nowadays include Russian Imperial Stout is one of my favorite styles. The ESB is still one of my favorite styles, English extra special bitter, as well as I like English ales, but you know they're mild overall, and I agree with American craft beer drinkers that, you know, if you're looking for something hoppy, you're probably going to go for like American IPA or even the American Pale Ale, and there are a few good examples in Quebec nowadays, which are really great. I also like Belgian beers. You know, if the season's right, I'll go for a nice wit beer, like a fruit-flavored wit beer. But for stronger beers, I usually go for like Belgian strong dark ale, like a quadruple or a triple. But if I go to a bar, I'll first of all I'll try something I've never had before, or something seasonal. So I guess, and then I'll probably listen to recommendations if they give me.
Let's get into like your kind of rationale or criteria for how you rate beer. Basically, you know, like where are you coming from when you rate a beer or when you judge a beer? Like how much emphasis does different aspects of the beer get in your whole?
I guess at some point, like halfway through the reviews I've done, kind of changed, but I definitely take into account the aroma, the smell, the mouth feel, how it feels in the mouth and how it affects your palate. Of course, taste is the prevalent aspect, but I try to look at it holistically and consider all the points. Just like Jay said in his interview, if a beer tastes amazing but it doesn't look good, it's not going to be considered. I wouldn't call it a very good beer. It could still be good. So it has to be balanced. I like balance in a beer, and I guess it's very vague. Some people consider a beer balanced when it's like, there's enough sweetness, enough hops, if it's an IPA, let's say. But I think balance it's sort of like intuitive. You kind of feel it. If a beer is really one-sided to me, where I'm coming from, I'm not going to say that's a great beer. As far as when I grade the beers in my reviews, recently I started to compare them to other examples of style. So like, I'm not going to give a beer a failing grade if let's say it's like an Imperial Stout. If it's a good Imperial Stout, it's not going to get a failing grade. Even if I don't like the beer that much, as long as it's drinkable and flavorful, it's going to at least pass. So I guess I'm not really, sometimes I'm too generous in my grades, the grades I give out.
So it sounds like you're almost grading on a curve.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's more like the majority falls into the same category, but I try to evaluate how the beer performs in the style, more so than, just overall. But maybe I just haven't reviewed any bad beers to give you an example to better explain that. I guess some reviewers they're really focused on American IPAs, and then they taste an English IPA or like a pale ale, probably a better example, and then they say this is not a pale ale, but it's just two different styles really. Like with time, it kind of they used to be one thing, but then they kind of split. Right. So you have to take into account that. But at the same time, I agree with you. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit ambiguous.
Some of the best beers are those that deviate from the style.
Yeah. Yeah, so if I think that the beer is not really into the style, I mean it's not in the same category, but maybe it's just a step above it. So maybe it's something new, and it all comes down to personal preference. But I try to be at points. Sometimes I try to be objective. Sometimes I just can't help it. I'm going to give this like the fullest grade. But
so like to you, are you of the school of thought that we can actually measure the quality of beer? Or is it entirely personal taste, or is it somewhere in between?
Probably somewhere in between. Because I mean, at one point when I was just starting out, you gave me really good points about because I used to film my reviews, from the back of the camera. When you see a person review a beer and you see his body language, and it really comes down to that. You recommend the beer because you believe it's good.
Right.
And if you think it's crap, sometimes people say like, yeah, maybe it's just not for me, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. It's all about experimenting and trying. If you're a follower of some beer reviewer, you just look at what they review and then you see, oh, maybe I like this one. And then if you're a professional review, I guess it's very different. You have to have some guidelines and set rules and.
Right, but can you actually say this beer is better as to say it's superior in quality than this beer, or is it just I prefer this beer more?
Sometimes, I guess, if it's the same style, internally I believe that I can sort of evaluate and say this is better than that, but maybe not. Maybe it's just my subjective taste. What really helps, though, I have to mention that, is what I discovered recently. If you have to revisit beers, like you might have a beer once and you think it's the best thing ever, then you have something else, you're like, yeah, maybe that's not as good. But if you revisit the first beer, that's when sometimes maybe you have a bad bottle or something. Sometimes you maybe not around. It's not the right time to review the beer like that. So it really helps to do that, even though you can't really go back and change the video unless you want to re-review it. But for your own, for your own library of beer reviews in your own heads, it really helps.
It's just frame of reference is kind of like what you're speaking is. Do you consider yourself like a real craft beer advocate? Like since you're fairly young, I'd imagine a lot of your friends are your same age. I'm not sure if there's a difference between Canadian and American culture or whatever. Do you find that a lot of your friends is like all they want to do is just suck down Bud Light or easy watery beers like that, or do they?
Actually,
what's your reaction
in
to
a
those
way,
situations?
I'm lucky with my friends. In a way, like a few friends of mine are sort of in between. They understand what's not good beer, but they're not really adventurous enough to try really cool beers. But they're sort of in between. So I can drink a beer with them. I can recommend something. They take me as reference. They trust my word. But sometimes they say it's just not for me. Some other people just don't like beers at all. Like they say, sometimes I can have this. Like one of my friends, which I reviewed the beer with together, he's just not into. He doesn't like coffee at all. So he wouldn't drink any stouts or anything like that. And he doesn't like really potent beers. But at the same time, he understands that macro lager is nowhere near like a wheat beer or something like that.
Right.
Some other people are just. They like beer, they enjoy it, but at the same time they want to get the buzz. So I guess the buzz is the priority for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it's different because the legal age as well. It kind of affects the whole thing. But people, for some reason, they think that I know my beer, but they don't really take me seriously. But sometimes they do. So I guess I should just work with what I have. So.
Now, to just kind of wrap up here do you have any guilty pleasures of like beers that hey, this isn't really a good beer, but I'll drink it, or anything like that?
Right off the spot, I don't know. I definitely it's a hard question. I can't really say if I think about it. Maybe some beers I just overestimate them. But at the same time, like I like Boddington's ale sometimes.
Right.
I know it's kind of watery, bland. But at the same time, it's not bad. So sometimes I guess that could be considered that. I don't have that many go-to beers. I usually try to drink different beers. But recently I started to sort of get my own just beers for my own enjoyment. So sort of outside of the reviews, outside of my written reviews. No, I don't really know. I used to. Actually, in fact, I used to like Sapporo beer, the Japanese one. But now I think I'm off it now.
Have you ever done any homebrewing or tried?
No, but I really want to. It's in Montreal, it's kind of hard. There's no specific shops that sell homebrewing stuff. But one day I'm really hoping to get into it. It's probably going to be quite bad at first, but then you improve with practice.
All right, well,
yeah.
I think that about does it. Go check out Denis's YouTube channel. I'll put a link down here. And thanks for participating in this.
Thank you.
Review. You might notice we're a little tired because it's
almost 2
almost 2 in the morning. So
But I still have to catch my bus to New
Yeah.
York City.
we're gonna watch Beer Wars now. So, thanks for watching. Thanks to Dennis for doing this interview.
Stick to the beer.
Exactly. Bye. We're drinking water.